I used to think I was broken, like something inside me was wired wrong, because no matter how hard I tried, I'd always fall back into the same patterns, the same failures, the same version of myself I was desperate to escape. And then one day, I discovered a truth so simple, so devastatingly obvious, that I couldn't believe I'd missed it my entire life. You don't need to become a completely different person overnight. You just need to get 1% better today than you were yesterday. That's it. And in 2026, that 1% is going to change everything. Let me tell you about David, 28 years old, overweight, stuck in a job he hated, scrolling through his phone for 6 hours a day, living in a studio apartment that smelled like old pizza and regret. Sound familiar? Maybe not exactly, but you know the feeling. That hollow sensation in your chest when you look in the mirror and realize you've become someone you don't recognize. David hit that moment on January 1st, 2025. He made a list of resolutions, just like he did every year. Lose 50 pounds, learn Spanish, start a business, wake up at 5 a.m., read a book a week, quit social media. By January 8th, he'd broken every single one. And that's when something inside him shattered. Not in a dramatic way, but in that quiet, desperate way where you're lying in bed at 2 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this is all your life will ever be. But David did something different this time. Instead of giving up completely, instead of waiting until next January to try again, he asked himself one question. What if I just did one tiny thing tomorrow? Not a complete life overhaul, not a transformation, just one microscopic improvement. So on January 9th, he did 10 push-ups. That's it. 10 sloppy, shaky push-ups that left him breathing hard and feeling slightly ridiculous. January 10th, he did 10 more. And here's where it gets interesting, where the real psychology kicks in. January 11th, he felt weird not doing them. His brain had already started forming a pathway, a tiny neural connection that whispered, this is what we do now. The human brain is terrifying and beautiful in equal measure. Neuroscientists have discovered that it takes approximately 66 days to form a habit, not 20, one like everyone thinks. But here's what they don't tell you. It only takes 2 days for your brain to start recognizing a pattern. 2 days. Your subconscious mind is always looking for shortcuts, for ways to automate behavior so it doesn't have to think. That's why you can drive home and not remember the journey. That's why you reach for your phone the second you feel bored. Your brain has created pathways, superhighways of neural connections that make certain behaviors automatic. And the incredible life-altering truth is that you can hijack this system. You can deliberately create new pathways 1% at a time, until the person you want to become is just who you are without thinking about it. David didn't know any of this. Just knew that on day 30, he was doing 50 push-ups without even breaking a sweat. So he added one more thing. He started reading for 10 minutes before bed. Just 10 minutes, one chapter, sometimes just a few pages. Nothing crazy. Nothing that required willpower or discipline or motivation. And here's the secret that self-help gurus won't tell you, because it doesn't sell books or courses. Motivation is garbage. It's the most unreliable, fleeting, useless emotion you can depend on. You know what works? Systems. Tiny, almost invisible systems that require so little effort your brain doesn't even register them as a threat. Because that's what your brain does when you try to change too much too fast. It perceives change as danger. It floods your system with cortisol and resistance, because for millions of years, doing something different meant you might get eaten by a predator. Your ancient lizard brain doesn't care that you want to be successful or healthy or happy. It cares about survival, and survival means staying exactly the same, staying safe, staying in the cave. But 1% is so small, so insignificant that your brain doesn't sound the alarm. It slips past your internal security system like a whisper in the dark. By March, David had added 7 small habits to his daily routine. Push-ups, reading, drinking 1 extra glass of water, making his bed, writing 3 sentences in a journal, taking the stairs instead of the elevator at work, and eating 1 piece of fruit with breakfast. 7 tiny things that individually meant nothing, but compounded. He'd lost 12 pounds without dieting. He'd finished 4 books without trying. He was sleeping better, thinking clearer, standing a little taller. And people started noticing. His coworker asked if he'd gotten a haircut. His mom said he sounded different on the phone. His ex-girlfriend, the one who told him he'd never change, sent him a message out of nowhere. She'd seen his Instagram story, him at the gym, and wanted to know what was going on. Here's what was going on. Mathematics. Pure, simple, beautiful mathematics that most people don't understand because they're terrible at visualizing exponential growth. If you improve by 1% every day for a year, you don't end up 1% better. You end up 37 times better, 37 times. Because 1.01 to the power of 360, 5 equals 30, 7.78. Your brain can't comprehend this intuitively. We're wired for linear thinking. We assume that small efforts lead to small results and big efforts lead to big results. But that's not how compound interest works. That's not how life works. And in 2026, understanding this principle isn't just helpful, it's essential for survival because the world is moving faster than ever before. Artificial intelligence is eliminating jobs, creating new ones, and reshaping entire industries every single month. The skills that mattered in 2020 are already obsolete. The person who stops learning, who stops adapting, who stops improving is going to be left behind in a way that previous generations never experienced. This isn't fear-mongering. This is reality. And the 1% rule is your lifeboat in a storm that's only getting stronger. Let me tell you about Sarah. She was a marketing manager at a mid-sized company, comfortable, making decent money, coasting. Then her company announced they were implementing an AI system that could do 80% of her job. She had 6 months before the restructuring. Most of her colleagues panicked, updated their resumes, started job hunting. Sarah did something different. She spent 15 minutes every single day learning about AI marketing tools. Just 15 minutes, she watched tutorials, read articles, experimented with ChatGPT and Midjourney and tools she'd never heard of 6 months earlier. When the restructuring came, everyone else was let go or demoted. Sarah was promoted. She became the AI integration specialist, teaching the entire company how to use these tools, making 50% more money than before. 15 minutes a day, 1% improvement in a skill that didn't even exist in her job description a year earlier. The future belongs to people who understand that standing still is moving backward, and moving forward doesn't require superhuman effort. It requires consistent, microscopic progress in a deliberate direction. But here's where most people screw this up, and I need you to really hear this because it's the difference between success and failure. They choose the wrong 1%. They pick something that sounds impressive or looks good on social media, but doesn't actually move them toward their real goals. They start learning Japanese when they need to improve their communication skills at work. They train for a marathon when they need to lose weight and would be better off fixing their diet. They read self-help books when they need therapy. The right 1% is the one that has the highest leverage in your actual life right now. Not someone else's life, not the life you wish you had. The life you have today, with the problems you have today, moving toward the specific future you actually want, and figuring out what that is requires brutal honesty. It requires sitting down with a piece of paper and asking yourself 3 questions. First, what is the biggest gap between where I am and where I want to be? Not 10 gaps, 1 gap, the biggest one. The one that if you closed it would make everything else easier. Second, what is the smallest action I could take every single day that would close that gap? Not the best action, not the optimal action, the smallest action that you know with absolute certainty you could do even on your worst day. And third, how can I make this action so easy, so frictionless, that not doing it requires more effort than doing it? That third question is where the magic happens. Because willpower is a finite resource that depletes throughout the day. Every decision you make, every temptation you resist, every email you answer drains your willpower battery. By evening, you're running on fumes. That's why most people fail at habits that require them to do something difficult after work. They're trying to make good decisions when their decision-making system is offline. So you have to engineer your environment to make the right choice automatic. David did this with his reading habit. He put his phone in a drawer in the kitchen, plugged in, charging, out of reach. He put a book on his pillow every morning when he made his bed. So at night, when he was exhausted and his willpower was gone, the path of least resistance was to pick up the book and read, because getting his phone required walking to the kitchen. And his tired brain said, that's too much work. Let's just read this thing that's literally in our hands. 3 months later, he'd read 15 books. Not because he became a more disciplined person, because he made being disciplined easier than being lazy. This is how you hack yourself. This is how you become the kind of person who does the things you currently think require motivation or inspiration or some special quality you don't possess. You don't need any of that. You need to understand that you are a machine, a biological robot running on pattern recognition and energy conservation. And if you learn how the machine works, you can reprogram it. Let's talk about identity, because this is where 1% improvement becomes truly transformative. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Every single one. When you do 10 push-ups, you're casting a vote for, I am someone who exercises. When you read for 10 minutes, you're voting for, I am someone who reads. Your brain is constantly collecting these votes, tallying them up, building a picture of who you are. And here's the crucial part, your brain doesn't judge the size of the action, only the consistency. 10 push-ups counts the same as an hour at the gym in terms of identity formation, because what your subconscious is tracking is not the magnitude, but the reliability. It's asking, is this something we do? Is this who we are? Most people try to change their results without changing their identity, and that's why they fail. They want to lose weight, so they go on a diet, but they still think of themselves as someone who struggles with food. They want to be successful, so they work longer hours, but they still think of themselves as someone who isn't good enough. And your actions will always align with your identity eventually. You can white-knuckle your way through a few weeks or even months of behavior that contradicts who you think you are, but eventually you'll snap back. The rubber band will pull you back to your self-image, unless you change the self-image itself. And that's what 1% improvement does. It changes your identity so gradually, so gently, that you don't even notice it happening. You just wake up one day and realize, oh, I'm a person who reads now. I'm a person who exercises. I'm a person who keeps promises to themselves. And once that identity shift happens, the behavior becomes effortless. You're not trying to be someone you're not. You're just being who you are. David hit this point in July. He'd been doing his tiny habits for 6 months. He'd lost 35 pounds. He'd read 23 books. He'd started a side business building websites for local businesses, something he taught himself by watching one YouTube tutorial a day for 15 minutes. And someone at a party asked him, how did you become so disciplined? And he laughed because he didn't feel disciplined at all. He just felt like himself, like this is what he did. Like not doing these things would be weird. But here's what nobody tells you about the 1% rule, and this is critical for 2026 specifically. The compound growth isn't linear, it's exponential, which means it's invisible for a long time, then suddenly it's everywhere. Imagine a piece of paper, regular printer paper. If you fold it in half, it's twice as thick. Fold it again, 4 times as thick. Seems reasonable, right? Now here's the mind-bending part. If you could fold that piece of paper 50 times, do you know how thick it would be? Guess. Seriously, take a moment and guess. The answer is 93 million miles, the distance from the earth to the sun, from one piece of paper. That's exponential growth. And that's what's happening inside you when you improve by 1% every day. For the first few weeks, maybe even months, you won't see much. The paper is still paper thin. You'll be tempted to quit because it doesn't feel like it's working. This is the valley of disappointment, where most people give up right before the exponential curve starts to spike upward. You have to trust the math. You have to trust the process. You have to understand that small changes don't just add up. They multiply, they compound, they create momentum that becomes unstoppable. David's side business made $300 in his first month, barely anything. In month 2, 500, month 3, 800, then 1,200, then 2,000. Then 4,000. By month 12, he was making more from his side business than his full-time job. He quit in January 2026, exactly 1 year after he started doing 10 push-ups. And the craziest part, the push-ups had nothing to do with the business directly, but they had everything to do with it indirectly. Because the version of David who did push-ups every day was the same version who showed up for his business every day. The identity shift, the proof that he could keep promises to himself, the confidence that came from seeing results, even tiny results, bled into every area of his life. This is the holistic truth of 1% improvement. You can't upgrade one part of your life without upgrading all of it, because you're not a collection of separate compartments. You're one integrated system. When you improve your body, your mind gets sharper. When you improve your mind, your relationships get better. When you improve your relationships, your career takes off. Everything is connected. Everything compounds. Now let's get tactical, because you need to walk away from this with a clear plan, not just inspiration that fades by tomorrow morning. Here's exactly how to implement the 1% rule in 2026, step by step. First, identify your keystone habit. This is the one habit that, if you build it, will make everything else easier. For most people, it's one of 3 things. Exercise, sleep, or focused work time. Exercise gives you energy and confidence. Sleep gives you willpower and cognitive function. Focused work time gives you progress and momentum. Pick one, not all. 3-1. The one that you know deep down would change everything if you just did it consistently. Second, make it stupidly small. So small it feels ridiculous. If your keystone habit is exercise, don't commit to an hour at the gym. Commit to putting on your workout clothes. That's it. If it's sleep, don't commit to 8 hours. Commit to being in bed with the lights off at a specific time. If it's focused work, don't commit to a full project. Commit to opening the document or application and writing one sentence. The goal is not to achieve massive results on day one. The goal is to show up, to prove to your brain that this is something you do now, to cast that vote for your new identity. Third, use implementation intentions. This is a psychology term for a simple concept. Instead of saying, I'm going to exercise, you say, I'm going to put on my workout clothes immediately after I brush my teeth in the morning. Instead of, I'm going to read more, you say, I'm going to read for 10 minutes immediately after I get into bed at night. The formula is, after I do X, I will do Y. This links your new habit to an existing behavior, using something you already do as a trigger for something you want to start doing. It removes the need for motivation or decision making. It becomes automatic. Fourth, track your progress visually. Get a calendar, physical or digital, and put an X on every day you complete your tiny habit. This seems childish, but works for a neurological reason. Your brain releases dopamine not when you achieve a big goal, but when you see progress toward a goal. Every X is ahead of dopamine, a tiny reward that reinforces the behavior. After a few weeks, you'll have a chain of X, and your brain will not want to break the chain. The chain becomes its own motivation. Fifth, never miss twice. This is the most important rule. Life happens. You'll get sick, you'll travel, you'll have a crisis, you'll miss a day. That's fine. That's expected. That's human. But never miss 2 days in a row, because missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit, the habit of not doing the thing. Your brain is always watching, always learning patterns. If you miss twice, it starts to think, oh, I guess we don't do this anymore. So if you miss Monday, you show up on Tuesday no matter what, even if it's a smaller version, even if it's just one push-up or one page or 1 minute, you show up. You prove that the identity is still intact. Here's what Sarah did. After her promotion, she didn't stop improving. She'd learned the lesson. She'd seen the power of compounding. So she picked a new 1%, public speaking. She was terrified of it, would physically shake when she had to present to more than 3 people. But she knew that in her new role, communication was leverage. So she started recording herself talking for 1 minute every morning, just 1 minute on her phone about anything. The weather, what she had for breakfast, a summary of an article she read. She didn't post it anywhere. She just watched it back, cringed at her arms and ahs and weird hand gestures, and did it again the next day. After 2 months, she volunteered to give a presentation at a small team meeting. After 4 months, she presented at a company-wide meeting. After 8 months, she was invited to speak at an industry conference. 1 minute a day, that's all it took to transform her biggest weakness into her biggest strength. The 1% rule works for anything. Learning a language, 1 Duolingo lesson a day, 5 minutes. Writing a book, 100 words a day, which is less than this paragraph. Building a business, 1 sales call a day. Improving your relationship, 1 genuine compliment to your partner every evening. Becoming more grateful. 1 thing you're grateful for written in a journal every morning. Getting better at your job. 1 skill building activity for 15 minutes a day. Becoming financially stable. $1 saved every day, automatically transferred. You see the pattern. It's not about the specific habit, it's about the principle. Small, consistent, compounding action in the direction of who you want to become. And in 2026, this matters more than ever because distraction has never been more weaponized against you. Social media algorithms are designed by the smartest engineers in the world, using principles of behavioral psychology and neuroscience with 1 goal: keep you scrolling, keep you clicking, keep you engaged, not because they hate you, but because their business model depends on your attention. Every second you spend on their platform is money in their pocket. And they're getting better at it every single day. They're improving by 1% too, in the opposite direction, making their apps more addictive, more engaging, more impossible to resist. So you're in a war for your attention, your time, your potential. And most people are losing without even realizing they're fighting. They wonder why they can't focus, why they can't finish projects. why they feel anxious and scattered and like they're always busy, but never accomplishing anything meaningful. It's because their attention has been stolen piece by piece. Scroll by scroll, notification by notification. The 1% rule is your weapon in this war. It's how you take back control. It's how you build a life of intention instead of reaction. Let me tell you about Marcus, 17 years old, failing 3 classes, spent an average of 9 hours a day on his phone, mostly TikTok and Instagram and YouTube shorts. His parents were terrified. His teachers had given up. He'd given up on himself. Then he watched a video, ironically on YouTube, about the 1% rule, and something clicked. He didn't delete social media. He didn't throw his phone away. He just made one tiny change. He set a timer for 10 minutes and studied before he allowed himself to open any social media app. 10 minutes, one subject, one problem set, one page of reading, one practice question. Then he could scroll all he wanted. First day, he lasted 8 minutes before he got bored and grabbed his phone. But he'd done 8 minutes, which was 8 more than yesterday. Second day, he made it the full 10 minutes. Third day, he found himself continuing past 10 minutes because he was actually kind of interested in the math problem. By the end of the month, he was studying for 45 minutes before even thinking about his phone. Not because he became disciplined, because studying became his new pattern, his new pathway, his new normal. His grades went from F's to B's in one semester. He got accepted to a college he thought was impossible. And the most interesting part, his phone usage naturally decreased to about 3 hours a day without him trying. Because his identity had shifted. He wasn't a kid who failed and escaped into social media anymore. He was a kid who studied, who learned, who showed up for himself. The phone thing was just a symptom. The real disease was the lack of identity, the lack of proof that he could be someone different. And 1% gave him that proof. This is the psychological lever you need to understand. Humans are story-driven creatures. We don't see ourselves as collections of cells and neurons. We see ourselves as characters in a narrative. And the narrative we tell ourselves about who we are determines everything we do. If your story is, I'm lazy, I'm not smart enough, I'm not the kind of person who succeeds, then you will unconsciously sabotage any effort to change that because it contradicts your story. Your brain doesn't like contradictions. It likes coherence. So it will find ways to prove your story right, even if your story is killing you. But if you change your story, one tiny action at a time, if you collect enough evidence that you're actually the kind of person who keeps promises, who shows up, who improves, then your brain starts protecting that new story instead. It starts looking for ways to prove the new story right. And suddenly opportunities appear that were always there, but you couldn't see them because they didn't fit your old narrative. David's story changed from, I'm the guy who tries and fails, to I'm the guy who shows up every day. Sarah's story changed from, I'm terrified of public speaking, to I'm someone who practices and improves. Marcus's story changed from, I'm a failure, to I'm someone who does the work. And once the story changed, reality shifted to match it. Not because of magic or manifestation or positive thinking, but because their actions aligned with a new identity, and actions create results. Now here's the dark side that nobody talks about, and you need to hear this. The 1% rule also works in reverse. If you get 1% worse every day, if you skip one workout, one page, one promise to yourself, and then you skip again tomorrow and again the next day, you don't just go back to zero, you go negative. You compound in the wrong direction. The math is brutal. 1.01 to the power of 365 is 37.78. But 0.99 to the power of 365 is 0.03. You end up at 3% of where you started, not 99%. 3%. You decay into nothing. And that's what's happening to millions of people right now. They're not making a conscious decision to fail. They're just letting small, seemingly insignificant negative choices compound. One extra hour of Netflix, one skipped workout, one meal that turns into a whole day of eating garbage, one lie that makes the next one easier, one avoided conversation that festers into resentment, one procrastinated task that piles up with 10 others. None of these things matter individually, but compounded over months and years, they destroy you. Slowly, invisibly, until you wake up at 30, 5 or 40, 5 or 50, 5 and realize you've become someone you don't recognize, living a life you didn't choose, wondering where the time went. This is the urgency of 2026. Time is moving faster than it ever has. Technology is accelerating. The world is changing in real time. You can't afford to wait. You can't afford to say, I'll start on Monday, I'll start next month or next year, because Every day you wait, you're compounding in the wrong direction. And the gap between who you are and who you could be is getting wider. But here's the hope, the beautiful life-saving hope. You can turn it around today, right now, this second. You don't need to fix everything. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to do one tiny thing, 1% better than yesterday, and then do it again tomorrow. That's it. That's the whole system. And if you do that, if you commit to that simple principle, I promise you, I guarantee you, your life in December 2026 will be unrecognizable compared to today. You'll look back and barely remember the person you were when you started, because that person will have been replaced cell by cell, habit by habit, choice by choice, with someone stronger, smarter, more capable, more confident. David is running his own web development agency now, making 6 figures in the best shape of his life, in a relationship with someone who actually respects him. Sarah is the director of marketing at her company, speaks at conferences around the world, mentors young women in tech. Marcus is studying computer science at a top university, building apps in his free time, completely unrecognizable from the kid who couldn't put his phone down. None of them are special. None of them had advantages or secret knowledge or willpower that you don't have. They just understood the math. They just showed up 1% at a time until showing up was who they were. And that's what I'm asking you to do. Not to be perfect, not to transform overnight, just to choose one tiny thing right now, today, and do it. Then do it tomorrow. Then the next day. Let the compound interest of small improvements work its magic. Let your identity shift gradually until you become the person you've always wanted to be without even trying. Because that's how it works. That's how you win. Not through heroic effort or dramatic change, but through quiet, consistent, almost boring dedication to being 1% better every single day. In 2026, in a world that's trying to distract you, diminish you, and keep you exactly where you are, this is your revolution. This is your path. This is how you improve yourself 1% every day until you're living a life you actually chose. So what's your 1%? What's the smallest thing you could do today that would make tomorrow easier? Figure it out, do it, and then do it again. Because your future self is counting on you. And the math doesn't lie. 1% every day. And by this time next year, you'll be 37 times better than you are right now. 37 times. Let that sink in. Let it terrify you. Let it excite you. And then let it move you to action. Because talking about change doesn't change anything. Only action does. So take yours now.